Ian Donis, the political reporter for Ocean State Media. That's your NPR and PBS affiliate here in Southern New England. Of course, the host of One-on-One with Ian Donis on those very networks. Nice to see you, my friend.
Happy to be back with you, Bill. Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure. We convene on a day now where, look, the reality is pretty clear. Speaker of the House, Joe Ciccarchi, likely to, and maybe he already has, we actually don't know, basically put his name in to become a Supreme Court justice here in Rhode Island. This is part of a series of maneuvers that we've seen the speaker make since he took power following Nick Mattiello. Now, 6, 7 years ago, I remember you and I were there together that night. The travel of Shekarchi from your standpoint, covering Rhode Island politics, is this an obvious place for him to land? Or is this sort of a, hey, there was no path to governor, Jack Reed's not going anywhere anytime soon, so this is a landing spot? What's your read on it?
Well, it's kind of like you're saying, Bill. Timing is such a huge factor in politics, and Shekarchi kicked the tires on running for Congress when those seats were open in recent years. He kicked the tires on running for governor. I think this strikes him as the right opportunity at the right time. My reporting tells me that Speaker Shekarchi will announce during Thursday's House session that he is indeed applying for the Supreme Court. And if he follows the example set by former Speaker William Murphy, who stepped down mid-session in 2010, Shekarchi will leave the speakership, become a regular rank-and-file rep, and that would avoid the kind of awkward situation of him leading the House rewrite of Governor McKee's budget at a time when Governor McKee is picking a handful, or is faced with the choice of nominating the next Supreme Court justice. But yeah, I think it strikes Shekarchi as a good capstone for his long career in public life, and too good an opportunity to pass up at this time.
No doubt, from my observation as well, having seen the travel of the speaker and, again, that likely political path, what it would look like to choose another office, executive or legislative. Look, there's no doubt about it that people inside the government right now, the government being Rhode Island government, may tell you there's no horse trading going on. There's no back and forth. Look, Speaker Shekarchi was soliciting support to run for governor behind the scenes. He, in fact, wanted Governor McKee to step aside. So it seems from the reporting that I've been able to do, whatever the case is, right now, from your standpoint, looking at this before we even get into the ethics review part of this, we can refer to Justice Lynch Prada for this conversation in just a moment. But just from an optics standpoint, does this pass the sniff test?
Well, it depends how you look at it, I guess, is the answer. I mean, was there some kind of quid pro quo with Shekarchi deciding not to run for governor and McKee saying, well, hey, we're going to have a judicial opening down the line? I'm not convinced that was the case, although people will certainly wonder about it. I think it's a little more germane in terms of what you referenced about how former Senate Judiciary Chair Aaron Lynch Prada threaded the needle to become a Supreme Court justice back in 2020. There had never really been a test of the state's revolving door law before that. The revolving door law was put into place in the early 90s after we had a lot of scandal with 2 consecutive Supreme Court Chief Justices resigning amid a lot of controversy. And there was a lot of well-deserved distaste on the part of Rhode Islanders about the sleazy quality of Rhode Island politics. I think things have changed for the better since then. We're not perfect, but I think things have gone in a better direction. And Lynch Prada argued that in her view, the Supreme Court is a constitutional office, and therefore it was not. It was exempt from the revolving door law. Other people disagree sharply. Common Cause of Rhode Island head John Marion said he was sickened by what happened with that, and that he thinks the Ethics Commission did the wrong thing by not rejecting Lynch Prada's a request for an opinion on their stance on that. So I think that's kind of the more germane issue. I mean, I think those of us who follow this closely believe that if Speaker Shekarchi applies for this position, which he is doing, it's hard to envision any scenario in which he does not actually get the job. That would be shocking. And I think on the merits, Shekarchi has a solid case. He's a longtime lawyer. He's known as being someone who is very deliberative and hears arguments from competing sides before coming to a decision on legislation. He seemingly has what people would call the right temperament to be a judge. The question really is how he's the top, most powerful person at the legislature, and is it a little bit slippery for him to go right from that to the Supreme Court? And that's going to be the next phase of this debate.
Yeah, and how this plays out from the standpoint of precedent setting, even in the moment right now. I think of Roger Williams University law professor Michael Yelensky, who both in an op-ed in the Boston, pardon me, in an article in the Boston Globe and also on the WPRO Dan York show, and in other cases has repeated time and time again, this is totally unacceptable. And you can kind of call that one end of the opposition, somewhere lighter touch perhaps, and that is John Marion, you reference of Common Cause. And then there seems to be the general consensus of most people who even do pay attention, which is this is inevitable. It is what it is, and time will tell how this proves out in terms of precedent setting going forward for potential speakers of the House that want to become Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, you lay it out well, Bill. And, Shekarchi is a very well-liked guy. It's funny because we still have many of the same underlying tough challenges in Rhode Island that were in place before he became speaker. Underperforming public schools. We see more municipalities having financial stress in North Providence and Cranston. The state's effort to build a stronger economy. And, despite Shekarchi being well-liked, despite ushering in an era of good feeling in the House of Representatives, and to his credit, he has focused a lot more attention on housing. Maybe we're at an early phase of digging out of the housing crisis, which is acknowledged as one of the state's top issues. But, in spite of that, making headway on Rhode Island's toughest challenges is really difficult, even when there's a speaker who's well-liked and by his membership and who has a good sense of decorum and collegiality.
Yes, no doubt about it. All right, what's your read on the governor's race as currently constituted? Ken Block put out a poll, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. It was a push poll that upon the second round of questions, he was in fact the front runner. He didn't lead with that necessarily and sort of introduced the idea that he was the front runner. Nonetheless, though, what that poll showed, two things. Ken Block is a viable candidate for governor. And number two, people want change. You see that in the support for folks. You see that in support for Ken Block. And frankly, you can even read into that with the undecideds. That's one poll. You cover this every day. I do as well. But what's your read right now in the governor's race?
Well, one thing I've been struck by is how here it is, we're almost in mid-May, and the race has been very slow to develop. Granted, there are a lot of people who don't really tune in until it's much later in the process, but I've been surprised that Helena Foulkes has not yet gone on television. She has a big cash advantage on Governor McKee, and she's enormously wealthy personally. So she could, get more attention, raise her visibility. And I expect that'll happen sometime this month. Governor McKee has certainly been using every opportunity available to him to try to promote policies that he sees as being popular, efforts to to widen the exemption for Social Security tax, reduce the cost of energy, so forth. He's using every tool at his disposal to make his road a little easier. Of course, we know it's a very difficult road based on all the polling. Ken Block's an interesting guy. I have known Ken Block since he emerged with the Moderate Party in 2008. He later renounced the Moderate Party. Block's candidacy makes me think a little bit of the late Robert Cool Moose Healy, who was a great eccentric and some kind of a folk hero of Rhode Island. Healy ran repeatedly for office, and the first, second, third time he didn't do so well. But we remember in 2014, he spent something like $35 and he got about 22% of the vote for governor. And he was a factor in that race for governor between Gina Raimondo and Alan Fung. Not to say that Cool Moose Healy and Ken Block are very similar, but I think the takeaway is that Block has built his credibility and his recognition over time. He's remained in the public sphere as someone who's dismayed by some of our boondoggles and some of the problems we have in state government. I think, as his polling suggested, it would be a tougher road for him as an independent if Helena Foulkes is the general election candidate in November. One suspects that if Governor McKee can find a way to win the primary, that would be a better matchup for Ken Block, and that his campaign versus the incumbent, Dan McKee, that could be a real barn burner of a race. But of course, that depends what happens in the primary. But, Ken's a serious guy, very bright, very thoughtful, and he knows state government well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops in terms of what his coalition looks like, and also how he defines himself. I was referencing, I think it was with Dan McGowan a couple of weeks ago. I think back to when Patricia Morgan ran for, when she ran for governor, she put together something like the coalition that had, Arlene Violet and this, that, and the other person, and somehow Ken Block was on there. The problem is those photos are going to resurface. Patricia Morgan, you couldn't think of a person in this state that represents the far right in terms of elected office more than Patricia Morgan. That's a tough thing for him to be able to move away from. That's what he'll get hit on no matter who he runs against in a Democrat head-to-head matchup. So he really needs to spend time defining himself to voters right now.
Yeah, it's also true that it's very tough to run as an independent. Certainly, political parties matter a lot less than in the past, but, the Democratic Governors Association will probably be spending money on behalf of Governor McKee. They're just these organizations that line up on a partisan basis, and there's no comparable effort on the behalf of independent candidates, and that's like another hurdle that faces Ken.
Yes. All right, one last note here, as you often do in your weekly column, which I should note as well. Make sure you subscribe to Ian's weekly mailing list, TGIF. It comes out about 4 o'clock on Friday. I always enjoy reading it, as I'm sure many of you do. And there's nice kickers in there and little stories that get your mind going just in time for the weekend. You also cover media really well. Big news in media. Big week for you guys at Ocean State Media. 103.7 FM, that's a legacy band. As a radio junkie, not only somebody who loves radio, but Rhode Island radio, that's a special piece of real estate. I think of 103.7 WRX, the great classic rock station that brought me into so much of the music that mattered to me as like a kid. And then WEEI on 103.7, Dale and Newmy. I'm not even talking Dale and Holly. Some of the best radio ever. And now, as of this week, Ian Donis and Ocean State Media. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bill. And people can find us online at oceanstatemedia.org. That's where you can find my column. And there's a link near the top if you want to sign up for email delivery. Yeah, it's great to be on one strong signal statewide. We took a big leap forward, about 2017 when we got the main signal we're leaving now, 89.3. That was a vast improvement over what we had before. When I joined public radio in Rhode Island back in 2009, we had high ambitions and high hopes, but you have to work with the field that you have. And we were on 3 different FM frequencies around the state. And that was obviously less than ideal to ask listeners to be, if you're driving around, to tune the dial, depending on whether you're in Coventry or, Burrillville or wherever you are. Now we don't have that problem. 103.7 is a great signal. It's a full circle moment for me because in my old days at the Providence Phoenix, the Phoenix briefly operated 103.7 as a alternative rock station. And the good news for Red Sox fans, if they're concerned about hearing Red Sox broadcasts in Rhode Island, they can find those at 101.5. But yeah, we are very happy to be at 103.7. It's going to be a way of hopefully expanding our existing audience. It's a very prominent station. carries all over the state and puts us on one signal, whether you're in northern Rhode Island, South County, east or west.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you mentioned WFNX. How could I forget that? I remember waking up the morning after they did the format flip to Jackson and the Pharmacist, where it was this morning news show. And it was like, well, this isn't classic rock anymore. That was an odd format that didn't really parallel the Phoenix's, motif necessarily, but it was a good moment in time. Most importantly, here's my take. Radio is an amazing medium, and it's an incredibly important thing in this moment. It's free. It belongs to the public. It's not connected to, and it is kind of connected to billionaires, but it's not as much as most of the tech that we use for communications. I hope that this moment with Ocean State Media, NPR, Rhode Island Public Radio, whatever, on 103.7 is a call to people to get back on the radio. I think that benefits. I think we think of this like the way that networks think of the NFL, which is that they advertise each other's games. Oh, you can watch Patriots, Jets on CBS, even if it's airing on Fox. Why? Because the medium, the space is important. And radio provides vital information in vital times. And you should have choices. And it's rare that you have more than one choice. In a market, you've got two choices at 99.7 and 103.7. And I hope it becomes a habit that people trust the authority and the literally the free nature of what you can get out of the clouds through radio. So congratulations.
Thank you, Bill. 100%. And, we are a totally free service, whether it's online or on the radio. We will never have a paywall. And for people who are unfamiliar with Ocean State Media Radio, I mean, we offer a mix of local public interest reporting. We have great national reporting out of Washington, D.C. and coast to coast. We use NPR coverage of foreign capitals, the war in Iran. You can get very informed, if you listen to the radio for 15 minutes, half an hour, however long you want to listen. Great interview shows like Fresh Air with Terry Gross and many others. And I encourage people to check us out at 103.7 FM if they have not.
That's right. Ian Donis, the eye dog, as they call him, as I call him, as we call him. How's baseball season start? One of a legendary baseball player as well.
I'm ready to start my old man baseball league. I hopefully will fare better than the Red Sox, but I'm keen to get back out there. I might go to the batting cage this afternoon because I have the day off today.
Well, thanks for making part of your day off with us. Thanks, iDog.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Good to see you.
All right, I got a question for you. Are you passionate about preserving our planet? Okay, good. You want to make that your career, perhaps? All right, you interested? Well, good news. URI Online, they offer marine and environmental science programs that are designed to empower the next wave of environmental leaders. That could be you. You can go ahead and dive into programs like their Master of Oceanography, explore sustainability with the Master of Environmental Management, or prepare for impactful careers with the Ocean Policy and Science Graduate Certificates they offer, along with a Blue MPA, the Blue Economy, right? Whether you're interested in protecting oceans, conserving ecosystems, or driving sustainability forward, the University of Rhode Island Online's graduate and certificate programs are led by expert faculty who will provide you with the hands-on knowledge and real-world skills you need to succeed, all from the comfort of your home. Explore your potential and make waves in your career with URI Online's flexible programs. Visit uri.edu/online to learn more. URI Online. Learn anywhere with us.